I'd been on the road 5 hours when I turned onto the gravel driveway. The old cedar tree was still there, bent slightly to the left, like it always leaned into the wind. I smiled just a little. For a second, I let myself believe this would be the year things were different. That this time, Thanksgiving would mean what it used to mean before the silence started replacing Sunday calls. I parked behind Kyle's new SUV. That was odd. Last I heard, he was too swamped at the lot to leave Spokane. The pie box shifted in the passenger seat pecan, from that bakery Mom used to rave about when I lived in the city. She'd texted just 3 nights ago, excited to see you. Bring that pie again, I brought it. 3 knocks, the kind you use when you're not sure if you're welcome. The door opened fast. Kyle stood there, leaning one arm against the frame, no surprise in his eyes. Hey, I said, small smile, guarded warmth. Happy Thanksgiving. He didn't return it, just stepped aside. And there stood my father, Richard Brennan, still trim shirt, tucked too tight, sleeves rolled like he was bracing for something. But his eyes didn't even blink. Then he said it. We don't have a daughter. My heart didn't break. It dropped, quietly, like the pie box slipping off the edge of a table. Excuse me, I whispered. His voice was flat. You need to leave, Claire, before I call the police. I opened my mouth, but nothing made it out. Mom just texted me. She said, he cut in. I don't know who you think you're texting, but you are not family. Behind him, Kyle leaned against the wall, arms folded, grinning. My old house key dangled from his belt loop. That key used to be taped inside my school bag when I was 12. I used to feel safe holding it. I looked at it now and felt nothing. I could have screamed, pleaded, asked why the way daughters are supposed to when their fathers erase them. But I didn't. I nodded, turned, walked back down the steps I once raced up with skinned knees and math quizzes. Back in the car, I buckled the pie in like habit, hands trembling. I stared at the front door. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. I didn't drive away right away. The wind had picked up. Leaves scuttled across the driveway like they were trying to get somewhere fast. I sat in the car, engine off, pie untouched, and stared at the porch I used to call home. From the passenger seat, I could still see the cedar tree swaying the window where Mom used to hang paper snowflakes every November. I remembered the smell of nutmeg, the squeak of the front screen door, Dad's voice booming from the kitchen. Claire, taste this. Does it need more sage? That house had been full of sound once. Now it felt like a stage with the lights turned off, empty and already repurposed for a different show. I was still holding my phone when someone tapped on the driver's window. Mrs. Jeanette. She lived next door. 70-something, sharp as ever, with hair that had been white since I was a teenager. I rolled down the window halfway. Oh, honey, she said, concern written all over her face. What in the world happened? Just a misunderstanding, I lied. She frowned. Well, I saw your parents and your brother loading up their car this morning, big suitcases. Your mom said they were headed to Kyle's lake house. Said it was going to be just the 3 of them. A proper family holiday. She even used air quotes. I blinked. Lake house, Jeanette nodded. Brand new, apparently, on Priest Lake. Kyle's very proud of it. A chill climbed my spine. That cabin was new and expensive. And Kyle, last I checked, couldn't afford an oil change without texting me first. Still smiling tightly, I thanked her and promised to stop by later. She gave my arm a soft pat and walked away slowly, her cane tapping gently against the pavement. Back in the car, I opened my email and searched for Kyle's last message. 2 months ago, sis, can you spot me a little something? Rent's brutal this month. I'd wired him $2,000 that afternoon without a second thought. I clicked into my parents' joint account next. I still had admin access. I was the one who set it up for them 2 years ago so they wouldn't worry about logging in, remembering passwords, calling customer service. So they wouldn't feel old. My eyes scanned the transaction history. Withdrawals, multiple, large, clustered tightly together in late October. A deposit from me on Monday. A $17,000 wire transfer on Tuesday. And then a real estate closing fee on Thursday. They bought the lake house. With my money. I laughed once, short, sharp, and ugly. The kind of laugh that gets caught in your throat and turns to silence. They didn't just disinvite me. They replaced me, and I had paid for it. I hadn't even started digging yet. And already things were rotting. I used to think numbers were clean. They didn't lie, didn't manipulate, didn't hold grudges. That's what Dad always said. People twist words, not math. But that was before I saw how math could be used to build a lie. I didn't go home that night. I went straight to my office. It was quiet. Thanksgiving week always was, and the city outside had the hush of people playing happy. I logged in, pulled up the joint account I'd set up for my parents 2 years earlier. The one I created so Mom wouldn't have to call customer service when her arthritis flared. The one I funded month after month so they could feel stable. Scrolling through the transactions felt like reading Betrayal in Braille, each entry ordinary, each date deliberate. They'd taken the money for Mom's surgery, but the hospital only billed half. The rest went to pay off a line of credit. Not in her name, Kyle's. The mortgage I thought I was saving them from foreclosure paid early. And then followed by a withdrawal labeled interior upgrade, cabin. A vacation property I didn't know existed. The month Kyle said his car was totaled, needed a loan to keep his job, there was no dealership invoice. But there was a $9,400 payment to a shell company. I clicked its registry, owner K. Brennan Enterprises. My stomach turned. I closed my eyes and pictured the old family photos still sitting in their hallway, Mom, Dad, Kyle, and me, on a windy Oregon beach. The kind of photo you frame because you want to believe in it. The kind you never notice fading until it's too late. That's what this was. Not a clean break. A slow rot. I opened the second account, Kyle's personal one. Transfers lined up perfectly with the dates I sent help. Rent, he said. Medical, he said. Just one more time. The lies weren't complicated. That's what made them cruel. I always assumed the worst thing they could take from me was money. I was wrong. They'd taken the belief that we were still a family. That when I sent that money, it meant something. My phone buzzed. James Morrison, I answered. You ready? He asked. More than ready, he paused. Claire, you sure you want to see how deep this goes? I already know, I said. But now I want them to see it too. I looked back at the screen. Rows of digits. Perfect little soldiers marching in one direction. Until I turned them around. If they thought numbers couldn't betray them, they forgot I learned from the best. James met me at his office the next morning. No small talk, just a fresh pot of coffee and a legal pad already half full. I stayed up running preliminary traces, he said, sliding a folder toward me. You weren't just being used, you were a front. Inside were transaction maps. Lines connecting my transfers to other names, then rerouting through shell LLCs. A dozen dead-end company names, most opened in Washington state. 3 directly linked to Kyle's dealership. What are these businesses? I asked. Paper. Some real estate flipping, a few fake consulting services. One claims to sell vintage motorcycles, but their tax ID doesn't match any licensed dealer. Your name's tied to 2 of them via wire transfer and a listed emergency contact. I stared at the lines. They used my clean history to make dirty money look safe. He nodded. And they left your name everywhere. We worked in silence for hours. James pulled data. I revoked access account after account, authorization after authorization. The control I'd handed over to make their lives easier, I was now taking back one by one. I filed a fraud alert with my bank. Froze 2 accounts they still had passive access to. Locked my credit file. Then I found something I wasn't prepared for. A vacation property 2 hours north of Spokane, registered under my full name. Purchased 6 months ago. I hadn't even heard of the town it was in. I opened the county records, forged signature, an address I didn't recognize. It was Real Estate Laundering 101. I emailed the documentation to a lawyer I knew in Portland who specialized in identity misuse. 10 minutes later, her assistant called to set up a full case review. Then I logged into the shared family account and submitted a full permission override. Immediate revocation. Within seconds, an automated notice popped up. Access attempt denied. Account flagged for suspicious activity. My phone buzzed. A message from the same bank system. Unauthorized login from unfamiliar device. Spokane. Blocked. I leaned back, watching the alert flicker on the screen. I didn't smile. There was nothing sweet about it. But for the first time since Thanksgiving, I didn't feel erased. I felt visible. They thought they'd locked me out. But I built the locks, and now I held every key. Dad used to teach me how to spot fakes. When I was 10, he'd sit me at the dining table with a flashlight and a stack of play money. Real bills have texture. Real ink sits on the surface. You can feel the truth if you run your finger across it. He made it sound like detective work, like integrity could be touched. I think that's what hurts most now. realizing he trained me better than he realized. James and I sat side by side in his office, tracing every name, every transfer, every lie they thought I wouldn't notice. The screen glowed soft against the winter afternoon outside. A spreadsheet pulsed open, but it was the folder names that hit me harder than the numbers. Claire, discretionary, C. Brennan, no visibility, no visibility. That was the label they gave me. Not daughter, not provider, just a gap in oversight. A blind spot they built and walked through laughing. I stared at the screen for a long time. James didn't say anything. He didn't need to. They didn't slip once. This wasn't emotional. It wasn't chaotic. It was designed. Every dollar had been moved with purpose, with planning, with practice. And the irony, I was the one who taught Kyle how to open his first business account. I helped Mom fill out her tax returns when she got overwhelmed by paperwork. I was the one they called when anything looked too complicated. But now, I was the one tearing it apart. I recognize this pattern, I said finally. James looked up. It's Dad's. He used to shuffle money between savings and investments to avoid tax penalties. He told me it was legal, told me not to ask too many questions. James nodded. That technique doesn't come from nowhere. This wasn't just your brother's mess. I knew that already. I pulled up one more file, an email attachment I'd recovered the day before. It was a memo between Kyle and someone named Vincent Rossi. I hadn't paid attention before. Just another name. But now, I saw it differently. James saw it too. He leaned forward, brows furrowed. Claire, that name's familiar. Very familiar. He opened his laptop, typed fast. A moment later, he turned the screen toward me. A mugshot, racketeering, laundering, suspected ties to organized crime. And beside him in the photo, Kyle, years younger, standing half out of frame. I sat very still, because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was danger, and I knew without even looking who signed the paperwork to bring him in. Dad. I wasn't expecting a knock that evening, not with everything still spinning. But when I opened the door, there stood Mrs. Jeanette's scarf, wrapped tight, breath rising in soft white clouds. I think I have something you need to see, she said, holding out a flash drive. She didn't explain. She didn't have to. Back inside, she settled on my couch while I plugged it in. My grandson helped me install the security camera a couple years ago, she said, adjusting her glasses. Has sound. I didn't mean to snoop, but well, after the way your father spoke to you, I got curious. I opened the video file, dated the day I'd shown up at their house. The footage came from her porch, angled just right to capture mine. I pressed play. There they were, Dad, Mom, and Kyle walking back into the house after slamming the door in my face, laughing, clear audio. Mom, I thought she was going to cry. Always the dramatic one, Kyle. She brought a pie, like she thought she still belonged here. Dad. Well, she doesn't. She's a wallet, not a daughter, and that wallet finally ran out. I didn't blink. Mom again, her tone syrupy and cruel. Vincent says we need to cut ties now. It's cleaner that way. He doesn't like loose ends. Kyle. She won't do anything. She's soft, always has been. Dad. She won't risk dragging her own name through the mud. She's too proud of that reputation. Mrs. Jeanette looked at me gently. They think kindness is weakness, she said. They always have. I transferred the file to my laptop, then 2 more backups. 5 minutes later, James had it. 10 after that, Sarah, my lawyer, called me directly. Claire, she said, voice sharp, this changes everything. That recording is damning. She didn't have to explain. Intent, coordination, motive, collusion with a known criminal figure. Vincent Rossi's name wasn't just a red flag anymore. It was a detonator. I emailed the footage to the FBI tip line with a simple subject line, audio evidence of family financial fraud and potential organized crime link. It felt sterile, clinical, but beneath it was something red hot. They didn't just erase me, they celebrated it, smirked about it, toasted my disappearance with my own money. Now it was on record. And the walls they'd built to shut me out, I'd just put the first crack in the foundation. And behind that crack, something darker was moving. Something with Vincent Rossi's fingerprints all over it. The FBI moved faster than I expected. By the following week, the knock on my door came not from a neighbor, but from Agent Torres. She was professional, concise, and didn't waste time pretending to be shocked by what she'd heard. We've been circling Rossi's network for a while, she said. Your recording connects some very stubborn dots. I handed her the printed ledger's transaction trails, and identity documents James and I had compiled. She flipped through them without blinking. When we moved, she said it won't be subtle. It wasn't. 2 days later, early Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving, the FBI hit 4 locations simultaneously. Kyle's dealership, my parents' house, the lake house, and a warehouse linked to one of Rossi's shell companies. I didn't watch it live. I didn't need to. I was at Sarah's office reviewing witness affidavits and prepping my personal statement. But around noon, my phone lit up with a breaking news alert. Federal raids expose fraud ring involving local business owner, ex-financial manager, and retired couple. I read the headline once, then again, then I put my phone face down. Sarah looked at me. "You okay?" "I'm not sure," I said. "But I think this is the first Thanksgiving I've had without them." And not felt guilty. That evening I made a simple dinner in my apartment. Roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, no cranberry sauce, no forced laughter. No looking over my shoulder to see if I was enough for someone else's expectations. It wasn't lonely. It was quiet. There's a difference. I ate at my kitchen table alone, then washed every dish by hand like Mom used to, before she started calling me ungrateful behind my back. I poured a glass of wine and sat near the window, watching the street below as holiday lights blinked in apartment windows across the block. My phone buzzed again, a new text from a number I didn't recognize. "You think this ends with us in handcuffs? You'll see what family loyalty really means. Kyle." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Let him talk, let them rage, let the whole illusion burn. They wanted to teach me a lesson, fine. But I'm not the one who forgot the most important rule Dad ever taught. Never put anything in writing, unless you want it read in court. And now everything was on paper. 3 weeks after the raids, I was called to testify. Not in court yet. The first step was a closed-door session with federal prosecutors and financial crime investigators. I sat in a government office surrounded by files bearing my name. Files my own family had helped corrupt. Agent Torres led the debrief. "You're not on trial," she reminded me. "But make no mistake, your cooperation is the reason we have this case." I nodded. I didn't need credit. I needed clarity. By then, Kyle had already confessed to parts of the scheme, but refused to name Rossi directly. My parents pled ignorance, claimed they were manipulated, that I had overreacted. They'd forgotten I was raised on balance sheets and accountability. The evidence said otherwise. Fraud, identity theft, money laundering, conspiracy. The documents were clear. The audio was damning. But it was the emails that broke everything wide open. Ones I never knew existed, buried deep in a cloud folder my father forgot to encrypt. Plans to redirect blame onto me. Falsified receipts. A draft statement Kyle had written describing me as mentally unstable if things went south. That was the moment the prosecutors stopped calling them elderly victims and started calling them co-conspirators. The court date was set. At the pre-trial hearing, my mother arrived in a beige coat she'd worn to church every Easter. Her eyes found mine for the first time in months. She started to cry. I didn't flinch. My father didn't look at me at all. Kyle scowled like a teenager caught shoplifting. When the judge asked the defendants if they understood the charges, only one of them hesitated. "I just want to talk to my daughter," my mother whispered, barely audible. The courtroom went still. I stood, calm, steady. "You don't have a daughter," I said. The same words they'd given me on that porch. But this time they echoed back with weight. Afterwards, Sarah pulled me aside. "They're trying to make a deal, offering to testify against Rossi in exchange for leniency." I raised an eyebrow. "They disowned me," she smiled faintly. "That's the problem. Now that they have no daughter, they have no character witness, no shield, just a stack of crimes and no one to plead for mercy. The state would seize the lake house. The dealership was gone. The accounts frozen, and I was leaving. 1 week later, I boarded a flight to Edinburgh. A consulting firm had offered me a contract 1 continent away from everything. Before I left, I visited the cedar tree outside the old house. It leaned as always into the wind. I didn't knock. I didn't look back. Some doors aren't meant to reopen, because when they said I didn't belong, they were right. I belonged somewhere stronger, somewhere I built myself.